So would you open that in the small blind? 2-6 suited?
Oh God, no, no,
You
no,
wouldn't? Okay, well,
no.
that's something you definitely need to be changing. So you should be opening any suited cards and anything that could make a straight in the small blind.
Small blind v like small blind v big blind,
Yeah.
or just in general, like.
Oh yeah. Only small blind versus big blind. Sorry, I should have said
Ah,
that.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. It was like what?
Yeah, yeah. What is this session? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just a trouble session. But yeah, so would you open that small blind versus big blind?
To be honest, probably not. I'd probably just like fold it, because I know I'm so kind of, I don't know, this is something I don't really do enough, is like play my suited cards.
Mm.
I just have a tendency to like, like unless I'm not a big fan of playing like low suited cards.
Yeah.
Like 9-10, I might play that, Jack 10.
Yeah.
And then obviously all the Broadway hands, but yeah, I'm not a fan of anything else.
So, and I mean, I'm the same. Like, I don't like going into hands with those the terrible cards. But when you're small blind versus big blind, especially in 2-0, people are folding like they're just folding everything. They're in the same mindset as us. They're like, I don't want to call unless I've got a good hand. And so they're like, if you open 80% of hands, they're only calling with maybe 30 or 40% of hands. So you're winning, and maybe even less than that, you know. And so you're just taking the blind almost every time it comes around, and that adds up a lot. And then obviously sometimes we still hit, but we sort of just play. If we do hit, we play a lot safer because our hand's so weak. But yeah, you make a lot of money just from the small blind versus big blind opening every time.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something definitely worth doing. Like when I started doing that, my win rate, or like the amount I was winning, just went like almost straight away. It was pretty crazy.
Nice.
Okay, so yeah, we're not opening this hand for sure.
Yeah. Cool. I'll skip it. Yeah. Not. So no, I'm not gonna open that.
Yeah. So you would be opening 7 Jack now, because it can make a straight. Small blind versus big blind.
Even if it's unsuited, though?
Yeah, even unsuited. Anything that can make a straight, anything that can, and then any 2 flush draws. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the idea is we're not going to be winning a lot of those hands when they call, but we're going to be winning all of them when they don't call. So, and they don't call a lot. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I think I followed that one.
Okay, so you should be playing every ace on the button.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
every ace, unsuited, suited, unless you've got a pre-flop raiser already.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're opening on the button, I should say you open all aces.
Yeah, man, limpers. I hate limpers.
Yeah,
irritates me so much. They're so horrible to play against.
So if you're opening, so say that guy limped and you had a better hand, because I don't even know, I wouldn't call ace 2 versus anything, ace 2 off on the big blind, and I wouldn't call like a standard raise. Would you call a standard raise with ace 2 off, do you think?
No, but I just checked around to me, so I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's fine, I think. But a lot of the time, versus limpers, we want to be raising up quite a lot. Like how big do you usually raise? Like say you were on the button, and you had.
So if I was on the button, it'd be 2.5, and then, assuming that it was like if there was like maybe someone raising before me, I had like a really good hand, like say ace king up. You're probably talking like queens, kings, aces, ace king.
Yeah.
Maybe even ace queen. I would probably raise it up to maybe 20 to 18 cent.
Okay. So if this guy limps, you're on the button with ace 2 offsuit. How much do you put in the middle?
I would probably put in 6.
6 cent. Okay, so that's something we can definitely work on. to isolate limpers, we want to be putting in um, three big blinds plus one. Three big blinds plus one big blind per limper. So it'd be 8 for one limper.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's in position. Out of position, we want to be doing around four big blinds plus one per limper. Yeah. And doing that pretty consistently also makes you a lot of money because oftentimes limpers are either really like they're sort of very polarized. They're either very stationary or they fold everything. And so what you can do is you can oftentimes c-bet limpers with basically nothing and c-bet it really low, like 33% or something like that. And if they're one of the types that fold, they'll fold basically their entire range. And if they're one of the types that call, they'll call their entire range. So you can basically say, if I actually hit a hand, I bet really big and hope it's a station and make a lot of money off them. And if I don't make a hand, I can bet really small and get a really cheap turn because oftentimes they'll just call. They won't actually re-raise you. And so you can make a lot of money off these limpers because also you're raising it so big, like you're raising it to 8, right? And they're calling 8. It means that the pot's already inflated more than usual, so you're making even more money off these guys, which is more of an incentive to get them off the pot. Yeah. So those are some of the guys you make the most money off.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. So yeah, I checked around. I think I did something funny. Yeah, I just bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of went with this bet because I was like, okay, so, I mean, his range is probably super polarized. He probably has some baby pairs. He's probably got some unsuited Broadway.
Yeah.
And I mean, if he had the hearts, like King Queen of Hearts, that would be delicious. Because I mean, if another heart comes, boom, stacking them. Yeah. But I basically bet that big because it was like, right, well, I want to bowl out his range, some of his range, and yeah, and then at the time I was thinking, okay, well the pot's going to get pretty big. I'm going to probably take another stab at it on the turn, and then if he calls off on the turn, maybe just check back the river.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. I think. What do you think a limper's range usually is?
So like, it's 2-0 is so weird, right? Because you can have like someone who limp like 2-9 offsuit, but then you could have someone. It's just so polarized. You could have someone who like limp aces or limp kings or jacks or, you know, limp like really strong value hands that they really should be raising, but they just don't. I don't understand having like an actual genuine limping range. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. Like the range is basically anything. And it makes it very difficult to play against. But what it means is that because we know it's anything, we're really lucky in a way because it means that, you know, they can have a lot of the time worse kickers than us. Like more often than not, they've got a worse kicker. And it also means that if they are raising, you know, we don't actually, like, because the pot's either like this, it's either really small or really big. It doesn't even matter. If in these situations, if they raise, we can just fold and we're only losing 2 cent, you know, it's not worth continuing. Or if they, you know, in a bigger pot, if they raise, we can say, oh, well, now they've raised too much for me to pay because the pot's already so big, so I might as well just fold and look for a better opportunity. So it makes your decisions pretty easy, I think. Yeah, like you can just say oftentimes that they'll either have a hand that they're going to be calling you down because they're really stationary, or they've actually got a really good hand, in which case you can just fold because you can just assume their range is really good if their cards are really good if they're re-raising you. And it's fine to get away. Like, I'm not sure how good you are at getting away from hands. Sorry? Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get away from my hand when I'm like playing like my A game, but like if I'm tired of playing my C game,
Yeah.
so many crying calls.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for me personally, like, and it depends on your playstyle, but I found that when I, uh, when I only was choosing opportunities that, like, I had control over, if that makes sense, where I, like, I know I've got the best hand pretty much all the time, and,
Mm,
and I'm not calling down with top pair, things like that. Like, or if I have got top pair, then I've also got top kicker. Um,
mm,
like as soon as I started eliminating all the other situations where I'm like, it's sort of like a 50-50. I'm not really sure what they have.
yeah.
They could have worse, they could have better. As soon as I just eliminated those, your win rate just goes up because you're just not playing any of the hands that you lose. Like if you think about it, you're only winning those hands like maybe 50% of the time, right?
Yeah.
And if you just eliminate them, then you eliminate all your losses. Because sorry, I should say you probably winning them less than 50% of the time because someone else has the betting lead. But yeah, you just eliminate all your losses from the uncertain hands, and
Mm,
you just gain from your certainty basically. And that's what I found for me works amazing. Like it's worked in 2NL. Like I can go back to 2NL whenever I want and just make stacks. And 5NL seems to be very similar, where you just
okay.
choose your spots. And it's
Cool.
it's just all about, well, for me it's about being patient. But
Mm.
yeah. Okay, let's just see. We'll see what happens next. What happens next?
Queen comes,
Yeah,
and I believed.
yeah. And so when he calls, what do you think he's got?
So when he calls, I'm thinking. So he might have another heart,
Yeah,
which again would be great for me. I'm thinking he's probably, gosh, he's a limper, so I mean it's kind of hard to like know what he has when he just be
yeah,
kind of stationary. So again, I'm kind of thinking from his point of view, he's probably thinking, oh, well, five cents isn't much. So I mean, I could still put him on having like a lot of like ace high,
yeah.
a lot of he could even have like a 4 or a 9,
Mm,
which is kind of why even like sixes, a lot of baby pairs. I mean, I think maybe if he had like jacks up, I think he probably would have maybe raised me. He
yeah,
might not have. But I'm thinking at this stage, like, okay, well, like this is a pretty good spot to c bet and c bet pretty high because, if he's got sevens, like he's going to be starting thinking, okay, like this board is just annihilating me.
mm,
Um, so that's why I kind of went for like 2/3, or even more than 2/3, like 77%,
yeah.
because I just wanted to just try and fold out as much of his range as possible.
Okay. So what would you do if he re-raised you here after you bet?
If he re-raised me here, I would probably I would probably eliminate any heart from his hand because it's very unlikely that I find like on 2NL that like anyone with a draw wants to get like the cheapest draw ever. They want to just get a really cheap draw and try and hit it without like costing too much.
Mm,
So I'd probably eliminate a heart from his range. Then I would probably start putting on maybe like either a 10 queen or an overpair or like ace king.
mm.
Yeah, I would kind of then his range would be pretty narrowed.
What
I
would
mean, I
you What
don't.
would you do though? What would you do if you re-raised?
Okay, well, what I would do,
Yeah,
I would probably fold because at that stage I'd be like, okay, well, I've given it 2 goes. He's playing back at me.
yeah,
He probably has me bet because at the end of the day, I only have ace high with a crap kicker.
yeah.
I mean, if he has ace 3, ace 4, which he very easily could have,
Mm.
uh, I'm screwed.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just go through all of that because I'll give you my take on what I think.
Okay.
What's going on. Um, so like we talked about before, I think you've either got the really stationary limpers or you've got the foldy limpers.
Mm,
In this case, we can assume because he's called that he's going to be stationed from here on out. And so he's basically going to call down any bets that you make from now on.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, we have the chance to make the nut flush. And so we don't actually mind raising the pot up because it was so small to begin with. And if he's calling and another heart comes, we can basically just try and stack him.
Yeah.
Or at least like overbet the pot and get a call most of the time because we're assuming he's a station. And I think your analysis of what he could have is pretty, like, it's correct. He's either got a draw, he's hit, or like that's it. Like he could basically have anything, right? He's either got a draw or he's hit, and this board's like pretty wet for both draws and having hit something. So there's not really too much we can look into his hand at the moment. We can just say he's either got a draw or he's hit, and we can get more information on later streets. But it really doesn't affect our hand too much because we don't mind raising and getting the pot high, even if we have to fold the river, because we've got an opportunity to stack him with the best hand anyway. So what happens next?
I think he calls me.
Yeah. So does that all make sense? Like, what do you think? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, yeah, he had me bet. So I was like, right, had to check on that one.
Yep, no, I think that's fine. And you probably would have been able to stack him because he had King Queen. He's got top pair, pretty good kicker.
Yeah.
Probably would have called.
I mean, yeah, he definitely would have called if another heart hit.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at this. Okay, so wait a minute. What's go back a bit. What is Fulminipper's range when he squeezes here?
Yeah, so like, to be honest, that was probably super. It was a super loose call on my part. I would say, I think it was because I mean, like, he probably. I don't know. I find with 2-0 players that they generally, when they're 3-betting back at you, they usually have something good.
Yep.
So, you could have a lot of like ace jack, ace queen, like ace X beats me.
Yep.
You could also have a fair amount of ace X that's lower, but I don't think he would. Sorry. I don't think he would. He would re-raise me with like ace 7 or ace 5.
Yeah, you're probably right. So like one thing that I've been doing, which has really helped me, is you basically say if someone in 2-0 is 3-betting, they've got ace king, they've got jacks plus. And you just say that to yourself. You say he's got ace king, he's got jacks plus. And what happens is when you say that, it means that when the board comes and you hit really hard, you can barrel really big because they've got a huge hand as well, right? Like say you've got the nuts or whatever, but because you're putting them on such a good hand, it means that you can just barrel and you can make a lot of money by doing that because you just say they've got ace king jacks plus, they're going to call probably, right? And on top of that as well, you can get away from a lot of things like what you're saying. If you put his range on ace king jacks plus, would you want to call with your hand right now?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
But it's not great at the same time,
Exactly. So I would say the same. It's you don't have to call here. You can if you want to. Like you still have a chance of making the nut flush. And I don't think it's too bad of a call to make, to be honest. But the thing that you have to recognize is that it's very tricky to play these hands if you're not considering the whole time that he's got ace king jacks plus, because what you want to be doing is like for example when the board comes, it looks like you've got a lot of equity here, but he's got a hand that's basically never folding here.
Yeah.
Unless he's got queens, he's going to want to be barreling. Every other hand that he has hits. um,
Yeah.
right? Like literally every other hand that he has, apart from queens, hits and is going to want to bet on the board. Um, However, because you've got a draw, you want to stay in, and you lose a lot of money because of that.
Yeah.
Because because you have to call down. If you miss once, you might get the club, and then you have to call down one more street. You've got the chance of stacking him, so like you can call, but it's getting into that situation that I'm talking about before, where you're uncertain how good your hand is, and it's very unlikely you're actually going to make a good hand. And also, if you hit like a 10 or an ace, you might be actually inclined to call the river. Like I was doing that a lot because I've got a lot of value, but what you got to realize is that you've got shit all value unless you hit your flush or your straight against his range. And then as soon as you realize that, then you start making a lot of money because you start folding when you've only putting in 6 instead of folding when you've put in 50 cents or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
yeah. So what actually does happen here?
I call and then king, 4 king jack, and then I check and he bets.
Yeah. And obviously you're inclined to call with the draw. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He just boom. He's just reeling me in right now at this stage.
That's fine. Okay. So that's good. Given what we know now though, what on average, I think betting on the river there you might be losing money.
Oh yeah.
2-0 players don't trap that often, but they do still sometimes, especially when they have you just don't know. But it doesn't happen often. But if he re-raises you there, you're kind of screwed. If he calls there, like he's only calling with better. But he's also putting you on the same range. Like he's saying, oh, he's got a lot of ace king. So when he doesn't bet here, he's got things like he might have been re-raising with, like he might have been one of those few players that re-raises with pretty bad hands. But something that I have been doing is, and I think I would encourage you to do as well, is we never assume that a player plays a bad range. Because as soon as we start assuming that they play anything, right, then all of our analysis goes out the window. We stop thinking about their range, what our range is. So it's very unproductive. Like, sure, we might make money in these spots, but overall, like in the long run, it's very unproductive, and you're not actually practicing when you're thinking they could have anything. So it's almost always better to say, like, give them their accurate ranges for their positions, and based on their, if they 3-bet, you give them a 3-bet range, whatever. And if you're wrong, it doesn't really matter a lot of the time, because you're only going to be continuing with hands that beat their range. And so it's going to be very infrequently that you lose to random shit, like if he had a 4-5 here or something, right? And you hit like your flush. Yeah. So, I found that playing like that, where it's just I'm gonna assume they have a good range. It works out. Yeah. Do you have you had any of those experiences where you've sort of been like, oh, they're a fish, they could have anything, or what's your weakness at the moment, do you think?
Oh man, I have so many. I get kind of aggro.
Yeah.
I am a bit of an aggro fish. I imagine there's plenty of people, that have the masterclass, watch the masterclass, have me tagged as like he loves it.
Wait, what specifically do you say, or you think when you do get aggro?
So I think like sometimes like what'll happen is like I'll try and like. I think I'll like try and make someone like fold out their range, and then they just like, they'll they'll just like tank, and then like all in or like
Yeah.
three bet me back, and then it's just like, oh, I've got myself into a really bad spot. Um, or yeah, so again, I'm not great when it comes to like range analysis as well. So I think that's one of my leaks as well. And Helena was like, yeah, you need to like get working on that straight away because you're just never going to progress if you're not like improving upon that.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's probably one of my biggest weaknesses because I just flip flop from like either playing like a super passive style or like a super aggressive style. I haven't really kind of like managed to find my own style. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if you'd even need to find a style in 2 an hour. It's kind of like you can play pretty ABC, and be winning because, like most of the players are suffering from tilt tilt issues, and like occasionally, like there'll be waves where they'll be flying fine and then they tilt, but it's sort of like it happens a lot more frequently than. Well, I'm not sure if it happens more frequently than other stakes yet, but it happens very frequently where players will just go up and down, and some players will tilt, some people won't be tilting, and they'll be playing fine. But we're capitalizing on the players that are tilting, and or are playing poorly. That's just what poker is. That's how you make money from playing poker. And well, that's how I think you do at least. But
No, it
yes,
definitely is. I mean,
yeah,
you have to, if you're playing a live and you just see someone who's like just lost a massive like 400 like big blind stack, and then straight away they just like slam their money back and rebuy. That person's gonna spew everything away, and you just got to get in when you have it. Like,
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree with Helena. Like the range, it can be very difficult because it's sort of like, yeah, a lot of the times you want to think that they could have a lot of things. Like I know when I was tilting, like I'm sort of very proactive about why I'm tilting, but I know that one of the reasons why I was tilting is that I would say one of the sentences that I would say when I was tilting was, they've always got it, or they can have anything. Like I'd be saying those things out loud, and the problem is that those both make you want to call rivers, and so you lose a lot of money calling rivers that you shouldn't. Whereas, yeah, and instead of doing that, we basically want to just give them credit. Basically, we want to say if they bet at us, there's not enough people bluffing on tour now that we need to be calling, and if if we've got a good hand, we can, like a really good hand, we can definitely call. But yeah, we don't need to be calling a lot of the time. And yeah, you'll make a lot of money by doing that, I think, as well.
sorry about that. Just put my dog out. She's like freaking out.
That's so good.